White House to see just what President Obama will say about weapon and ammunition control, with the State of the Union just 5 days away. Joining me now, Iowa Republican Congressman Steve King. Congressman King, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it,
Congressman, you guys in the House have some very interesting views of the Senate. You have boldly claimed that the Senate can pass the repeal of health care. You said the votes are there in the Senate. That would mean that Democrats would have to change their votes. Which Democrats in the House are on your list of possible switchers who would vote to then repeal the law they voted for?
Well, I don't want to really put words in the mouth of or assign a position to the senators. I'm looking at it on balance, and on Tuesday morning when I woke up, there were 23 Democrats, and I counted Joe Lieberman as one because he functions as one, that were up for re-election in 2012 in the Senate. By the time I woke up yesterday morning, there were only 21. We're watching a shift over there right now, and I think there are 6 or 7 or 8 Democrats that are in a position where they might well vote to repeal Obamacare, and so I predicted about 2.5 weeks ago that if we can get an up or down vote, but I don't think we can break the filibuster at this point, but an up or down vote, I think their votes will be there to repeal Obamacare. And now when I hear Mitch McConnell say, I assure you there will be a vote, I'm feeling pretty confident. If he's right, I think I'm right. I think we'll see a vote to repeal Obamacare on the floor of the Senate.
Well, what I think is clear after what we heard from Senator McConnell, and by the way, what we heard from Chris Dodd on this program last night when I asked him, is it possible in those loose rules of the Senate for this thing to somehow get to the Senate floor as an amendment to something else, or in one of those other moving vehicles? Senator Dodd said that is possible. I think Senator McConnell will do everything he can to find a way to get it to the floor, which will mean at least, Congressman King, that senators will be put on record as being willing to vote to allow it to go forward or not. It'll have to get past a 60-vote threshold at least to move forward on the floor. So you will have some sort of at least indirect vote on repeal, I think, on the Senate floor at some point. I think McConnell can make good on that. Is that your view of how it will go?
I wouldn't concede that it has to be a 60-vote break the filibuster cloture vote. They sent some of Obamacare to us on the reconciliation package, which was a simple majority. So I'm hopeful that there'll be creative people over there that will find a way for a simple majority vote in the Senate. I'm not necessarily predicting that will happen. I'm saying, though, if it does, I think the votes will be there to repeal. And I'm looking forward to watching this unfold. We sent a very hot potato over to Harry Reid yesterday, and now it sits in his lap, and he's going to have to figure out what to do with it, because the American people are going to turn their focus on the Senate and say, give us a vote. We want to know where all the senators stand on a full 100% repeal of Obamacare.
Well, the minority in the Senate has absolutely no power to use the reconciliation tool, so that one's out. But we will watch as this develops. Your friend and colleague, Michelle Bachmann, will be coming to your state, Iowa, tomorrow. You're in Washington now. Are you going to fly off to Iowa tomorrow to be on the ground to greet her when she gets there?
I was just asked that question a little bit ago, and we're still working on the logistics, so I don't know that yet. In fact, as I was sitting here, I was trying to work it through. So we'll see how that works tomorrow. I'm trying to find a way. She's a very close friend.
Are you hoping she's going to Iowa to explore running for president, and that she will run for president? And does she, among the possible candidates, represent your views more accurately than any of the others?
Well, she represents I agree with the views that Michelle Bachmann represents. And as I say, she's a very close friend. She's very smart. She's a very quick study. She's a wonderful messenger. Her instincts are good. And I'm looking forward to the debate on the presidential race. And it's too early for me at this point to make a decision. But I am encouraging the candidates to come to Iowa, engage in the debate. And I want to be helpful in helping provide access to the activists in the state so that we can have a very intense, engaging, policy-focused caucus process in Iowa as we build up to the New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada primaries.
Congressman King, anything you can do to get her to run will be welcomed by us in the media. We would love to have her as a presidential campaign candidate to cover. I mentioned Congresswoman McCarthy's bill to restore the ban that used to exist on these high-capacity ammo clips, the kind that was used in Tucson. I want to show you what Dick Cheney had to say about that.
Whether or not there's some measure there in terms of limiting the size of the magazine that you can buy to go with a semi-automatic weapon. We've had that in place before. Maybe it's appropriate to reestablish that kind of thing.
Do you agree with Dick Did you agree with Dick Cheney that maybe it's appropriate to reestablish that ban?
Yeah, I'm reluctant to move down that path that would put more limitations on the Second Amendment. If we pass a ban on a clip, they will solder two together and have it anyway. I think the Second Amendment's a very important principle, and I will stand and defend that. I regret the tragedy in Tucson. It cast a pall over the entire Congress. You could feel it yesterday and today on the floor, but I'm not willing to go down the path of making an adjustment to a Second Amendment right. We've been through that fight before.
We've been through it, and it worked. We had it for 10 years, and it didn't do any damage to people who wanted to buy weapons in this country. What would be wrong with going back to the way we did it for 10 years?
Well, the assault weapons ban, if that's the reference, there's never been a way to define what an assault weapon is. It always defines what it looks like. But, for example, I look around my neighborhood, and the most popular coyote hunting rifle would be defined as an assault weapon. It would have banned all of them.
We're not talking about assault weapons. We're talking about these particular clips. That's all Congressman McCarthy's bill talks about, is these clips that allow you'd only be allowed to shoot 10 bullets instead of 31 bullets that were fired at Congresswoman Giffords.
No, I'm not willing to go down that path. If we reduce it to 10, then there's our argument for 9 or 11. It's the person that carries the gun that commits the assault. They're the one that should be punished if they assault with that weapon to the maximum extent of the law. And I will be aggressive on that. I think there are many of us that will be aggressive on law enforcement. Punish the person that commits the crime. It's not the gun and it's not the clip. It's the person that commits the crime. If we focus on that, there will be a deterrent effect. And I know it's not an effect for a crazy person, but they'll find another way. They always have, and there will always be ways that people are creative in committing this kind of destruction if they're an irrational individual like we saw in Tucson.
Congressman King, in 2007, you were very impatient with the Republican strategy to win back the House. You thought they should be more aggressive in winning back seats from Democrats, and you said, quote, "There's got to be blood on the floor," end quote. Now that there is Gabby Giffords' blood on the floor, do you regret using that kind of language?
There's really no connection or relevance there. That's an expression that's commonly used, and we needed to be more aggressive, and I've been more aggressive. I followed through on the things that I promised that I would do, and that aggressiveness has been helpful in winning back the majority. But I think you can see there's a tone in the dialogue that takes place. Republicans have had a toned-down dialogue in our debate, but I think if you listen to the other side, they have invoked the tragedy in Tucson and used it to try to oppose the repeal of Obamacare. We saw what Congressman Cohen from Tennessee had to say about Nazis and Goebbels. So I think you can see where this is going with the intensity. And I'll say there's another thing. This isn't just being straight up with this. There's a characteristic that takes place. When you don't have the votes, you've got to turn up the pressure. And when you do have the votes, you can turn down the pressure. That's going to be the difference. The majority can have a lower tone. The minority will turn the tone up, and we've seen that in this debate for repeal of Obamacare, Lawrence.
So Congressman, now that you're in the majority, you won't be saying there's got to be blood on the floor.
I am a kinder and gentler person. I'm just very sure of that. And I've gone over to the other side after the election and said, I've served in the majority and in the minority and now back in the majority. And having experienced that on both sides, I will be a gentler person to the people in the minority. And I will tell you that the Congress that was run under the guidance of Nancy Pelosi, the process was shut down. And it was run out of the Speaker's office and the Rules Committee. We're going to open this up. There's going to be open rules. There's going to be real debate, and you've seen that, 7 hours of debate on the repeal of Obamacare. There'll be open rules on appropriations bills, other open rules on bills that are coming to the floor, more debate. It's about winning the debate with the American people, and that's what we need to do. Once that's won, then you can have a vote like we had yesterday and today. That debate's been won. That's why those votes were up on the board. 87 new freshman Republicans in the House of Representatives, fresh-faced and ready to claim our country back and go back to constitutional principles and fiscal responsibility.
The kinder, gentler Congressman Steve King. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Congressman, and I hope you can come back so that we can discuss immigration, which I know is something very important to you and to me, and on which we could not differ more sharply. But I would love to have another discussion with you about that.
I look forward to that. Thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you, Congressman. Coming up, more independent